Hello and welcome to True Crime Diary, a light-hearted podcast on a serious subject. Every 2 weeks we look back through true crime stories to discuss an event that took place on this week in history. I'm your host Mark Decana, and with me as always are my friends Jed Lester.
Hello.
And Rue Turner.
Hello.
So the date we're looking at this episode is December the 8th. In 1963, two 23-year-old classmates decided it would be a good idea to strike one of the most infamous kidnappings in the America.
You say that, but I'd never heard of this.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of it. Also, when you say classmates...
They went to school together.
Oh, sorry.
Right.
I thought they were at school at the time.
They'd been put back a couple of years.
They were 23-year-olds.
Well, I know. That's what I'm saying. I mean, we're classmates, but I wouldn't say meet my classmate Mark.
Well, that's their connection. That's how they know each other.
All right, fine. I didn't know this had happened, but absolutely hate the phrase. Yeah, the thing is, it was before my time. I can't stand that phrase. It's
Everything is before your time.
But I mean, it's like I can't stand that. Yeah, it's like World War II was before my time, but I know about it. The Bible was. I have heard of it. Yeah, I didn't. I would say most people don't know about this. You didn't know about it at all.
No. When you said Frank Sinatra Jr. was kidnapped, I thought, oh, I didn't know he had a junior at the end of his name.
Well, there's the rub, you see.
Right, yeah.
For those who might not know, there is a Frank Sinatra Sr. and a Frank Sinatra Jr.
Right.
Frank Sinatra Sr., Old Blue Eyes, the chairman of the board, was the singer. And then Frank Sinatra Jr. was a singer. But it was not that one. But it's his son. And he's also not Frank Sinatra Jr. because their middle names are different.
So hang on.
Don't have the same name.
Who got
right.
kidnapped?
Junior.
Oh, right. So it's not Frank Sinatra.
Frank Sinatra 2.0.
So why are we doing this pod?
Because he was
That's
kidnapped.
like some.
Well, you don't give. Who cares about that bloke's being kidnapped?
So it's Frank Sinatra's son.
Frank Sinatra's son.
It's not as good.
Forget it.
Not interested. Who was the mother?
Nancy.
No, it was
his wife.
Nancy. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was worth
Not
asking.
Nancy Sinatra, his daughter.
Nancy Sinatra Jr.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, well, because Nancy Sinatra Senior was Nancy Barbado.
Okay.
Or Barbado, or Barbado.
So hang on. Frank and Nancy got married and had a son and a daughter called Frank and Nancy.
Yeah. That's confusing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Who were singers?
Yes.
They were all singers, all four of them.
Really? Yeah. I didn't know any of that.
No.
Well, there you go. We aim to entertain and educate.
You won't tomorrow either.
You won't remember any of it at all. So Frank Sinatra II
The rubbish one.
is not the rubbish one.
Can't you just trust that I'm a really good singer?
So he's Francis Wayne Sinatra,
Right.
and Frank Sinatra, the one we know, is Francis Albert Sinatra.
Okay.
So technically he's not Frank Sinatra Jr. because their names are different.
Kind of.
It's just Frank Sinatra,
Yep.
the younger. So he was 19 when there was a kidnapping.
This is why I haven't
Gosh.
heard of it, because it didn't happen to the correct Frank.
Yeah, why didn't they kidnap his dad? One of the most famous people in the world.
Yeah.
Maybe they were worried about his friends.
Well,
But then, if you're gonna kidnap Frank Sinatra's son, you should be worried about his dad's friends.
Absolutely, yeah.
well, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, these boots were made for filling with concrete and throwing in the river.
All over you.
So says the famous.
Yeah. Nancy, not that one. The second one.
Yeah.
Nancy the younger. So, Barry Keenan and Joe Amsler, 23.
Oh, yeah.
Classmates.
The classmates. Yeah.
Okay.
So they followed 19-year-old Frank Sinatra Jr. All around because Frank Sinatra Jr. was a singer in his own right, even as a teenager.
Okay.
So he was already a singer.
I'm expressing my inner anguish through the majesty of song!
Were they going after the one they wanted?
Yes.
It wasn't a case of...
It wasn't a mistaken.
Right, fine.
It wasn't a McKay, Muriel McKay situation.
Okay.
They wanted to get the son because then they thought
course,
that the
yeah.
rich famous dad would pay
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
the ransom.
The man who can write the checks would still be
Yeah,
with the checkbook.
exactly.
Yeah.
Because if they kidnapped Frank Senior and said, Frank Junior, we've got your rich dad, he'll go, great!
Money.
I've got all the money.
Yeah.
So, on December 8, 1963, he was staying at Lake Tahoe, which is border of Nevada and California, at Harrah's Hotel and Casino.
Yep.
He was performing at Harrah's in this club in Lake Tahoe. He was in his room with a friend in his dressing room, when the two guys, Keenan and Amsler, turned up at his dressing room and they pretended they were delivering a package. It was like Amazon, I don't know, early UPS.
When was this?
At his dressing room.
What, before he was going to perform?
It was 9 p.m, so it was probably either after performing or between
So
shows.
basically, they were strangers in the night.
Oh dear, I can see where this is going. Have you just got a list of song titles?
Night House?
Not at all. So, okay, I'm going to be on the back foot now. So they approached the door like strangers in the night with a package. But on being admitted to the dressing room, the two young men tied up Sinatra's friend with duct tape, gaffer tape, and they blindfolded Frank Jr., took him out the side door of the club, to their car, and fled the scene with their victim.
I mean, that was something stupid, wasn't it? I would argue.
Yeah, fair enough.
Went pretty smoothly, though, didn't it? Pretty straightforward bit of kidnapping. Kidnapping always gets messy after the fact, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The kidnapping can be quite easy, unless you're Loeb.
This is where you play the game of what mistakes happen next.
Yeah.
What was the cock up that the criminals always do?
I mean, that's life.
So the first problem that occurred was that the friend who'd been bound in the room, he freed himself pretty quickly from his duct tape incarceration.
Yeah, sure. You can lick the
edges,
bit, the inside bit.
Yeah.
Off your mouth.
Oh, I thought you were talking about his hands.
No, you know when you
could lick your hands
on sellotape on your mouth.
Yeah,
I reckon lick your lips. Yeah.
He got himself freed and he contacted the police.
Hello, 911? I need the police right away.
And
As you would.
Mm-hmm.
Did he see everything? Or did they tape his eyes up?
I think he was bound and gagged. I don't know if his eyes were taped or not.
I've never heard of that anyway. They taped his eyes.
That's pretty unkind, isn't it?
Or covered. I don't know about that. But the point of fact is, they blindfolded Frank Jr. But they
yes,
blindfolded him. But they tied up. I don't know if there was a blindfold in his.
Did they get him under his skin?
God.
That's not the title of the song, but I couldn't say.
So the police set up roadblocks and stopped the car.
Well, that was easy.
All over. Finished.
Yeah. But mysteriously, they just let them go on their way.
What do you mean?
They just let them through the roadblock. They stopped the car. They blocked the road.
Where are you off to, sir?
What's that noise in the boot?
On your way, sir.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Fine. Great. Where you go.
Yeah.
So they're off and away with their victim. So the next morning, the police, who have been unable to, or incapable, I should say, of solving the crime, they call in the FBI.
And this would have been gigantic, wouldn't it? This, this breaking news. So 63. So, I mean, I suppose arguably. Sorry, did you say 63?
63, yeah.
I mean, I suppose arguably it would have been gigantic because he was big star in the 40s or whatever.
Yes.
And, I don't know, trajectory was even larger.
Yeah, I mean, well, there was a period in the 50s where he was completely out of favour and couldn't get booked for anything.
Had he done something wrong or just times moved on?
Well, because his image was tarnished by his ties with the mob.
Right.
Because all his mates were gangsters, most notably San Giacomo, who was head of the Chicago outfit.
I enjoy collecting protection money, putting whores to work, loan sharking. I enjoy planting bombs in people's cars. These are a few of my favorite things.
We've heard of the Chicago outfit because that used to be Al Capone's mob.
Blimey.
So this is proper gangsters.
And friends of Sinatra used to hang with Capone's group.
Yeah.
So it's a fairly indirect.
It was years ago.
Oh, right.
So Capone was late 20s, 30s.
Yeah, exactly.
People who knew each other from that time were all mates.
Right, yeah.
And in the entertainment business and in the mafiosi. So when you come back into, you go through the war and you come into the 40s, they all know each other, he's around. Everyone's mates of mates. Yeah. And don't forget that Frank Sinatra's big. I mean, he was big in the 40s, as I say. There was a time they were talking about him being going to be taken over from Bing Crosby as the main crooner, the young buck.
Yeah.
There's at least one Disney cartoon with him them two caricatured in it. So, I mean, they were so famous that they brought to Disney's attention to put them in film. But then they go, oh, these all mobs and gangstery types.
Yes, okay.
He's hanging out with nefarious people. So he kind of slipped off. And don't forget that his big launch, as we would know it, is from his residency in Las Vegas.
Yes.
And formulation of the Rat.
Whereas 40s was film.
40s was film.
Mainly.
Well, it had been club crooning mostly. And then he got into film.
And those are mob clubs.
Mob clubs. And then he would have got into films, so the films would have been huge. Then he fell out of favour, and then he got his big residency at Las Vegas, where he brought in people like Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr. But don't forget, Las Vegas was mob founded.
Yes, right. Okay.
It was all run by the mob.
This is our objective. Las Vegas, Nevada. Mission? To liberate millions of dollars.
Also, that gives you ties to Kennedy, because Kennedy's whole presidential campaign was mob funded.
Was it?
Yeah, they're big mates with his dad.
Mr. Kennedy.
Mr. Kennedy. So JFK's dad, he was mob tied with Giacomo, all of that stuff.
Right.
Giacomo got Kennedy, all his women, Marilyn Monroe and all this
Did
stuff.
he bump him off?
Well, big argument to say yes. When
Kennedy was murdered, everyone.
Kennedy was murdered
Spoiler alert.
about a week before.
Ah.
This is December 8th. He was killed in November 22nd, so less than a fortnight beforehand. Kennedy had been assassinated.
I mean, that's arguably totally unconnected. But
Kennedy and Sinatra were mates,
Right,
and everything was pointing at a mob hit because Bobby Kennedy had this whole thing about pursuing organised crime, based on the fact that the mob helped get them elected on the basis that they would back off.
Yes, right. Yeah.
But he didn't.
If anything, they ramped it up. So there's more than a small amount of evidence to suggest that the mob were at least involved.
And Hoover was J. Edgar Hoover was leaning on Sinatra to lay down his association with the mob.
Yeah.
He was pressuring him to kind of become uninvolved.
Yeah.
Which he sort of did, but he didn't. You know, I mean, he visibly became less involved with the mob, but actually he was still carrying on.
And Kennedy and Sinatra were big mates. They would hang out a lot.
Kennedy and Sinatra. Right, okay.
But then because Kennedy then had to, because he was president, he had to try and dial back the association with crime. That meant he dialed back Sinatra, which, Sinatra was really upset. And when Kennedy got assassinated, Sinatra thought it was the mob. So then when his son was kidnapped, he thought, that's the mob, in leaning on me to keep my mouth shut.
Blimey.
So it's a big old thing.
It is.
Those bad old gangsters.
Anyway, it turns out probably wasn't the mob. It was these two idiot kids.
Why didn't you say that at the start?
Because it was an interesting little
side comms.
But it's all connected, crisscross, mutual interests.
Conspiracies can be very exciting,
even
when untrue.
Always not true. I mean, everything I said was true. Anyway, the point being that Sinatra was so convinced that the mob was involved that when he received a ransom demand for $240,000, he offered them $1 million.
That's a lot of scratch. Man could retire on that amount of scratch.
Wow.
More than 4 times.
That's not how haggling works.
No, and they said no.
We want $240,000.
We want $240,000. That's what we want. Here's $1 million. No.
Quite a specific number.
$500,000.
That's too much.
I would have asked for $250. $240 is quite specific.
It is quite specific.
That'll be about 2.3 million today.
Again, it's too specific.
So they asked for 2.3 million and he offered them 10 million, effectively.
Yes.
And they said, no, we want 2.3.
They said no.
They said
I'll
no.
do it mine.
Damn. Got in under the radar. Hello, my name's Mark Decano and I host the Comedy in a Nutshell podcast, in which I talk with those in and around the comedy circuit, and most especially the comedians, about what comedy means to them.
Simon Amstel plus Lena Dunham plus Mr. Blobby. I thought that would be a good combo.
Every gig you get is somebody else not getting a gig.
I've had people like pull out a notepad and I've been like, oh no, thank you.
You are a jester and you're here to bring light relief to people's lives.
Somebody at the end was like, oh my God, she's dirty. And I was like, oh, thank you very much.
My boyfriend says he feels like he has to tread very carefully because he was like, I know that everything has the potential to become material.
I can now give to people and they definitely in that moment are having a good time.
So if you want to know more about what comedy means to the people at its heart, then hear it straight from the horse's mouth. Comedy in a Nutshell, wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to Fringe, baby.
So, Keenan, he called in another man, a third man, John Irwin. Now, he was going to be the go-between. He's the one who got in contact with Sinatra Sr. About the instructions from the kidnappers.
Oh, okay, yeah.
This is a recording. You've dialed the right number. Now please hang up and don't do it again.
He gave them a demand. He offered their his counter-offer, which they declined. So Sinatra got the money together. He gave it to the FBI. They took pictures of it in the cake. They put it in a briefcase and took photos and everything.
Because they'd never seen anything like it.
Because they'd never seen money.
Sure.
I'm sure the FBI in 1963 were very familiar with mobsters handing them money. So the plan was that they would take a briefcase full of money on the morning of the next day, December 11th, down to a Texaco garage in Sepulveda.
Texaco garage?
Texaco.
I thought that was just here.
No.
The Texaco garages.
No, it's the Texas Oil Company.
Yeah.
Based in Texas. Not here. So Texaco garage in Sepulveda, California. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Yeah,
Sepulveda?
Sepulveda.
Darth sister.
At that spot were parked 2 school buses.
Yes.
And the idea was they would drop the briefcase between the school buses.
What, in between?
In between, betwixt bus. So they did. The FBI took the money, dropped it between the 2 school buses, and walked away and left it there.
Nothing cute, nothing fancy. Just pay the ransom money and report back here.
So Keenan and Amsler went to pick up the money. Now, the interesting thing is, the guy they brought in, while they're going to get the money, the guy they brought in, Irwin, he decided that, actually, this whole kidnapping, not for me. So he let Junior go while they'd gone to get the money.
Okay.
What do you mean, let him go?
He freed him, released him.
Oh.
Okay, buddy, you're free. Now escape. Go.
So they hadn't got the money yet?
No, they got to the 2 main guys had gone to get the money.
Yes.
Amsler and Keenan.
While they'd gone,
Irwin, the guy who'd been brought in to basically make the phone calls for some reason, he let him go.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Got nervous.
I mean, send in the clowns. The lowest of
so tenuous.
So Amsel and Keenan go off and get the money.
Yeah.
So they live the high life.
It doesn't work when you do it. You're not allowed to do it. Did they successfully go and pick it up?
They successfully went and picked it up. And Sinatra Jr. basically turned up in Bel Air, bumped into a security guard and said, "Hey, I'm Frankie Jr.
He'd literally been...
I've been kidnapped.
Off you go.
Away you go."
And the security guard said, "Oh, yeah, you're the 3rd one today."
Yeah.
Oh, man, you ain't never meet no Frank Sinatra.
So in order to sort of keep him secure so that people wouldn't recognise him, they put him in the boot of the car, the trunk, if you will, of the security guard in his car, and drove him to Nancy Sinatra, mother, Nancy Senior's home, which was in Bel Air. Because they were divorced, they were separated.
Oh, was
so she lived in Bel Air and he lived elsewhere. Elsewhere. Interestingly, because the kidnappers had demanded that all their contact had to be done by payphone, Sinatra Sr. Was worried he wouldn't have enough coins for the payphone.
Really?
Yeah.
What, that was his main...
No, that's not his
with
main.
A suitcase with 240,000 in it and not enough coins.
That was a concern. Yeah, well, you know.
Doesn't take notes.
Exactly. But for the rest of his life, he always carried 10 dimes in his pocket. Always.
Really?
Yeah. And he was buried with 10 dimes in his pocket.
Wow.
Because he was always paranoid about not having enough money for the payphone. Because of this.
Cool.
Blimey.
There you go.
Wow.
So now Sinatra is free.
Sure.
He told them everything that he knew. He told the FBI.
Sure, yeah.
He had barely seen 2 of the kidnappers, and he'd only heard the voice.
Because it was dark and he got blindfolded or something.
Well, presumably, because we know he'd been blindfolded.
Yep.
He said he'd barely seen, so he gave him what description he had. So he might have caught glimpses.
Sure.
And he only heard the voice of the 3rd person, which would have been Irwin.
Okay. Yep.
So, using the clues given by Junior,
yes,
the FBI tracked their way back to Canoga Park and found the house where they'd been holding him.
Quite good, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
It was a very good year.
So they found fingerprints.
Yeah.
They found a fingerprint on a roll of adhesive tape, which matched the tape that he had been taped with. They found an envelope with fingerprint on it, which was at the house. The house had been rented by Amsler, one of the people.
Sure.
Classic rookie mistake.
Classic.
Do you think this was their first? Do we know if this was their first foray?
No. I mean, they were quite young to be experienced kidnappers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there might have been wrong-uns, but I think if they had been kidnapping, they probably would have been better at it. But,
yeah, sure.
yeah. I mean, it went relatively smoothly to begin with.
Yeah, sure.
But
they were young at heart, basically.
Yes. But also, as in always in these cases, there's someone who breaks, isn't there? We've already had the guy brought in, the third man, Irwin. He's already let the guy go.
He has, yeah. He didn't even need breaking.
No.
He quit, basically, didn't he? He went, forget this.
Yeah. And of course, then the next thing he does, he reads in the press that the FBI have found the house.
Yes.
So, of course, so naturally, he then breaks down and tells his brother everything. And his brother calls the FBI and grasses him up.
Right.
Have I done something, said something? Why does my brother despise me?
So Keenan and Amsler were then captured within hours, having been named by Irwin. And they got almost all the money back.
Wow.
So this is a few days after the kidnapping.
And after picking up the briefcase.
Which
contained... It didn't contain $1 million.
It had the money they asked for, $240,000.
Okay. Right.
So now, the three are all in custody, and most of the money.
Yeah.
So minus expenses.
Minus some small expenses.
So initially they had high hopes.
Yes. The three were all prosecuted for kidnapping.
Yes.
Keenan was at one point put forward as being legally insane and not responsible for his crime.
Really?
Yeah.
Blimey.
It's funny
how legitimate was that?
Yeah, they were fine until they got. Yeah. One of the arguments from the defence was that Sinatra Jr. himself had orchestrated the kidnapping as a publicity stunt.
Sure, yeah.
Although that would have been quite easy for him to deny, obviously. But there was another piece of evidence, as well as the confession of Irwin. Keenan had also written a confession. He put a confession in writing.
Yeah, that was weird.
And put it in a safety deposit box.
When?
Well,
like...
I mean, before
they'd done it?
Early on. I don't know if it was before they'd done it or shortly after they'd done it.
Right.
But he had absolutely no idea why he would have done it, but he wrote a confession and put it in a safety.
Why would you do that?
Just make it whoopee.
Jesus Christ. Are you trying to start a new drinking game?
Did he say who was doing it with him? I mean, in his confession, did he say it was...
I don't have a copy.
Yeah, did he say it was just, it's me and my shadow?
Oh, don't you get into the So all three were convicted for kidnapping. Life plus 75 years.
Wow.
What the hell?
What did I ever do to you? You took Frankie away, and you turned Lenny into a dolphin.
Does life mean life?
No, that's not.
No, it's...
But otherwise that's pointless.
Oh, yeah. He's dead, but he's got another 9 years.
Plus 1 million years.
No, that's because if they get eligible for parole, it's a lot. The point is, it's very long. But none of them served that, either of those two things.
Okay.
Life.
Fine.
They didn't serve life or 75 years.
Oh, okay. All right.
They both got out quite quickly.
Does the US, do they have a distinct... Because we here have a distinction between life and whole life sentence.
Well, I presume back then...
Whole life sentence means life, as you might literally think.
Yeah. Well, you have a life sentence,
and
then you have a whole life order addended to it.
Okay.
Which is the life bit of it.
I think life used to typically be like 25 years, wasn't it?
But you'd serve.
But you'd be eligible for parole, so you come out a lot earlier. Yeah.
Cool. So it's like a hotel for monsters.
Life plus 75 years for Keenan and Amsler, and a mere 75 years for Irwin.
Mere. Did any of them serve anything? A. Did any of them serve anything? B. Why was it binned? I mean, if I was them, I'd probably want... I don't know, being inside wouldn't have been any better. My point is that people would have been after them, but...
Yeah, well, because of this contention...
Frank's mates.
Because of this contention of possible legal insanity.
Oh, yeah.
Terms were reduced to 25 years. But they got out a lot earlier than that. Amsler and Irwin did 3.5, and Keenan did 4.5.
Well, that was it.
So life plus 75 basically came down to 40 years on average.
Blimey.
Well, that's nothing.
Keenan was out in 68.
Yes.
And By 1983, he was estimated to be worth $17 million from real estate dealings.
Just a new career.
Turned over a new leaf.
Wow.
Came out, got into real estate, made his fortune.
People are no damn good, but they will always need land, and they'll pay through the nose to get it.
1998, he gave his story to the newspapers, and Columbia Pictures offered $1.5 million for a film deal for him and his conspirators.
Yep.
And Frank Jr. filed a lawsuit to block it and won.
Yeah, I can understand that, considering everyone was still there and alive. And
yeah, well, California has a statute forbidding felons from profiting from crime.
Yes,
Right.
Sure.
So he argued that they were just basically selling the story of their criminal activities. So
that's fair enough.
He stopped it, and it was violating his First Amendment right.
Right, yeah, okay.
I'm an American. I have rights.
So Keenan is still around. He's in his 80s now.
Is he?
And Frank Jr. passed away in 2016.
Did he?
He did.
It's a terrible thing. Everybody loved Frankie.
So we find ourselves in pop culture. So there's a film in 2003 called Stealing Sinatra. William H. Macy.
Hey!
And then apparently there's another one, I don't know if it got completed, with Joe Mantegna, called Operation Blue Eyes. So, yeah.
As of March 2020, Operation Blue Eyes still hasn't been made.
Oh, is it not?
No, they seem to have only cast one actor so far.
Actually, at the time of the kidnapping and the Kennedy assassination, Sinatra was working on a movie, Robin and the Seven Hoods.
Robin Hood and the Seven Dwarves.
Merry Men.
Robin and the Seven Hoods.
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
Well, it was a modern to the 60s retelling of the Robin Hood story.
Yep.
But instead of being outlaws hiding in the woods, they were gangsters in the city.
Oh, the hoods.
So they're hoods, the hoodlums.
Yeah.
So it's basically they were playing themselves.
Yeah.
So it's basically him and the Rat Pack. So it's a Dean Martin.
Yeah.
So because then they had the assassination and the kidnapping, they were going to shut down production completely. Sinatra said,
"Yeah,
stop this."
sure.
But they did actually complete it, and it's not terrible. Actually, it's all right.
Okay,
it's all great. It's what you'd expect from the Rat Pack. Is Dean Martin and Sammy Davis making loads of jokes,
yeah,
and singing a song,
and then to sing the song. And Peter Lawford sort of standing nearby, as he did, saying, I'm Kennedy's brother-in-law.
I'm also in this group.
Yeah. One of my favourite things about Frankie Jr. I mean, first of all, he was a singer in his own right, like I say. He became quite famous, not as huge as his papa. He had a bunch of albums, he played loads of shows. He's been on TV a lot.
Yep.
My favourite appearance of him was on Family Guy.
Meaning he was drawn, or
he was as himself.
Right.
Yeah.
So did he play himself?
He played himself.
Oh, yeah, cool.
He was in season 4. There's an episode called Brian Sings and Swings.
Right.
You know, it's like into his swing music.
Yeah.
And him and Stewie duet.
Yes, I know.
So they meet Frank Sinatra Jr. and they all go on a singing, swinging tour.
Yes, they do, don't they? Yeah. They literally do a countrywide tour.
Yeah. And they introduce Frank Sinatra Jr. as the member of the board, as opposed to chairman of the board, which is his dad's nickname. But and they sing. Obviously, he sings throughout. They sing it, and then he sings the Family Guy theme tune over the end credits.
Oh, does he?
It's really funny. That's my favourite one. But obviously, he's been in a bunch of things, a bunch of albums. He sang the Star Spangled Banner at Yankee Stadium. Like they always have something to do that.
Yeah. In New York.
Yeah. Yes. That Yankee Stadium. Yep, he also got offered a role on Star Trek in the Deep Space Nine series.
Offered?
He was offered a role because he was a big Star Trek fan.
Is Deep Space Nine...
Yes, it's the shit one.
The shit one, yeah.
Well, I was going to say...
It's the one where they boldly don't go anywhere at all.
Who's in that? Is Deep Space Nine got 7 of 9?
No.
No, that's Next Gen, isn't it? Isn't it?
Yes, yeah. It is mentioned in the Picard series. Deep Space Nine is one of the stations that they passed through.
He was meant to be in it.
Well, the part he was offered in Deep Space Nine was Vic Fontaine,
which is a lounge singer.
Yeah, he's a lounge singer.
That's such a...
The title of the first episode that Vic Fontaine appears in is His Way. which is an obvious reference. Yeah.
And he sang, "Fly me to Arcturus."
Yeah. Funny. They offered it to him, but he turned it down because he said, "I only want to play an alien."
Oh, okay.
And
So
Vic
he wanted to be in it.
And Vic Fontaine's not even a human, though. He's a hologram.
Right. So
No,
he's
I want to be an alien.
And they said no. I would have gone, yeah, all right. It was a load of makeup or whatever.
They made Dwayne the Rock an alien.
Did they?
Yeah. He had a big foldy head.
Foldy.
Well, you know, like
Fair enough.
You know, big foldy head.
Like they do.
What does that mean?
Well, like Worf. But it's not Klingon, but just like a little foldy forehead, like other Klingon-style races.
Also, in a role a little bit on the nose, he played himself in The Sopranos.
Of course. That's, well, I mean, it wasn't him who had ties, I suppose, but...
So if you're brought up in that environment, though, you can't not have
Yeah, he would have known
some associations.
He would have seen his dad hanging out with all these hoodlums. Everyone walking around with fedoras all the time.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So there's a nod or a chuckle.
Well, it might have been a slight to his dad, maybe, because his dad tried to stop the Godfather being made because he said it was about him.
Well, yeah, and again, might be part of his whole sort of paranoia about exactly. So I'm trying to be on the mob's good side.
Sure.
But it got made anyway, and it wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad.
Yeah, it was all right. You heard it here first, folks. The Godfather was not bad. That's all for this time. If you want to know more about what we've talked about on this episode, then just Google it or something. You can listen to all of our previous episodes on our website. That's www.truecrimediary.co.uk. Please remember to leave a review on your podcast provider if you can, or you can email us. That's stuff@truecrimediary.co.uk. My thanks to Jed and Rue and to all of you for listening, and we'll see you again on the next date in our True Crime Diary.